Welcome back, everyone. I'm sorry it's been a couple weeks, probably 3, 4 weeks. I've been jonesing to do this. I'm telling you, I've been like, Bobby, you got to get with it. I don't know if it's been procrastination or things just been piling up, and I had to do other things. But I'm so glad to be back because this has been on my mind for weeks. I've been kind of looking all this stuff up, doing my own research on it. A lot of people have been talking about this. There's a gentleman that wrote a book, I think, a US of AA, Joe Miller. A lot of people are talking about this, but not to. I don't want to dismiss or minimize anyone's research and work, but a lot of people miss the point. When you search the history of Alcoholics Anonymous, you'll go to these different sites, and they'll give you a script of what they want you to believe. They don't go any further than the triangle. They don't go any further in describing or explaining who, when, why, where, how did it happen, who was really involved. I'm going to talk about the puppet masters, okay? Puppet masters and the puppets. And when I mention Marty Mann, when I mention Bill W., they're puppets of the master plan, okay? I always say, look, you have pieces. If I just look at this one piece, oh, it looks fine. I'm looking at this little piece. Oh, that's nice. They're helping people. I look at this other piece, and yeah, that looks really good. That looks good. But when you start putting all the pieces together, it creates the picture, the big picture. And I'm going to go into the big picture. Now, I'm going to mention some names. Look, I did a couple podcasts, Connecting the Dots and Follow the Money, months ago. I never read Joe's books, but you know what? Sometimes it sounds like we're repeating ourselves or copying, and we're not actually doing that. We're doing our own research, and the research is the same. The facts are the same. I just go a little more down the rabbit hole. I go a little deeper, a little further down the rabbit hole. And some people may call me a conspiracy theorist or Bobby, that's off the wall, that's all the charts. How do you get this information? Well, if you connect the dots, follow the money, or put the pieces together to the puzzle, the veil will be lifted, and you'll be able to see these things. Let's get into it. Now, if I don't mention Rockefeller, everybody says, why do you mention Rockefeller? Well, Rockefeller back then in the 1930s, he had his eye, that's Rockefeller Jr., okay? He had his eye on Alcoholics Anonymous from the day one, from way back then. Now, why? Why would Rockefeller have his eye on Alcoholics Anonymous? What does he care about that? Well, you got to get into you got to research Rockefeller medicine. You got to study a little bit about Andrew Carnegie, J.P. Morgan. People are saying, well, I heard all these names, but go back and research all the names, okay? Even Rothschild's family. Go back and search Rothschilds, Andrew Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, and of course Rockefeller, because I'm going to be talking a lot about Rockefeller. I mean, Rockefeller was the first billionaire. He was the first billionaire, okay? He was at one time the richest person in the world. So I have to take that into consideration, because when you start connecting the pieces, the AMA, how did Rockefeller influence the medicine? Back in 1913, Rockefeller started Rockefeller Foundation. Let's see here. I'm going to go back and talk about, let's see, the AMA, 1847. Now, why was Rockefeller interested in the medical field? Because he was the 1937 worth over 30 billion, ruled 90% of the oil industry. Do you know what pharmaceutical drugs are made from? Okay, oil. Rockefeller in 1902 shaped the school system, but here's his plan. Rockefeller gave 1 million initial to Rockefeller family, eventually gave 180 million, and took over the General Education Board in 1902. created the General Education Board because he wanted to eliminate. What they did was they eliminated chiropractic, naturopathic, homeopathic, holistic medicine, herbal medicine. They were dominating the medical field at that particular time. And Rockefeller, with his oil industry, matter of fact, he went. Let's see, he went in 1939. Now I'm jumping the gun a little bit. I'm bouncing back and forth, and I'm sorry about that. But in 1939, the Drug Trust Alliance was formed by Rockefeller Empire and German chemical company I.G. Farben. He took over the pharmaceutical industry over there. Rockefeller's empire and Chase Manhattan Bank, now J.P. Morgan, owned half of the U.S. largest drug manufacturing industry in the world. If you look at 1939, Bill and Bob met in 1935. No big deal. He had a cool concept. One alcoholic talking to another. How can I help this? Years before that, when I talk about connecting the dots and follow the money, I talk about where the alcoholism disease concept kind of was created. It was never proven. It was just said that it was a disease. And then Rockefeller, he was looking at Bill W. because he was looking at the alcohol thing that Bill was getting together, right? In 1939, it all started to gel together, but in 1938, when Frank Amos, who was Rockefeller's confidant and advisor, Rockefeller sent him out and said, check out this Alcoholics Anonymous thing, because by then, I'll go back, but Rockefeller was owning and educating, and he owned the schools. He was putting so much money into the school, so he was pumping out what the school should be dictating, saying. He was indoctrinating the whole society about the medical field. So Frank Amos does his first report, 50 men, 2 women. And he gives notes back to Rockefeller. He checks it out. Rockefeller, he's got a brilliant mind, because listen to this. It's the first multi-level marketing business, the recovery industry. Rockefeller created the first multi-level marketing industry in the world. Okay. As everyone knows, in the beginning, for the first 3.5 years, they didn't even have a name. They didn't have 12 steps. There was no book, no steps, no name, until Rockefeller came into the picture. Because they already screwed up. Hank and him screwed up by selling these shares, and Rockefeller had to go back and buy them all back off everybody. And it took him a couple of years to do that. Bill was broke for years. AA did not become profitable for another 10 years later. So Rockefeller was, he was bankrolling this whole thing. Oh, where's the evidence of that? You connect the dots, connect the pieces, follow the money, and you'll find out why the MLS system was designed. Who was Avon? Did you ever hear Avon? One of the first MLS. Avon, Neutralite, Herbalife. All these MLS came about the same time. Right after the Great Depression. And that's where all the rich makes their money, during the Depression and after. They go down the downturn, and then they can make it on the upturn. So he sees this opportunity. And he gets Bill's brother-in-law, Leonard Strong, William Richardson, Leroy Chapman, and Frank Amos become the top trustees. They set Rockefeller sets up this alcohol foundation, and he creates the program. They say it's not organized. So here we go. Here's the big book. It's only 134 page, 460 pages, 164 pages. The rest is stories. This was created 17 years later. 17 years later, you're talking to 12 steps, 12 traditions. 17 years later, this book, it has it all. It's the 12 concepts. You got the 12, 12, and 12. It's not organized. This thing is the world's largest recovery addiction MLS first, and smart recovery is they're for the last 20 years they've been jumping on it. They took over rational recovery. Trimpley's rational recovery took it over, and they're catching on, and they're creating it in a little different manner. The first multi-level marketing, Rockefeller started it, organized it. Why? People say, why would he do that? And who did he get to promote it? Well, he didn't have to search too far. First of all, Bill and Marty Mann, they come over, they hook up. Marty, anybody says, oh, Bill was a womanizer, but not with Marty, because Marty was, lesbian. And Marty hooks up here, Rockefeller's checking this out. He's supporting it. He's giving money. He's watching the whole thing. His advisors. Marty and Bill go to High Watch Farms in 1939. This whole thing started about 1939. Check out High Watch Farm. The world's first recovery center. I don't know if it was the world's first, but the first that we know in the United States, the first recovery center of the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous. High Watch Farm. That was the first rehab. Of course, you had to pay. It was only for the rich and the famous, because business people, this was promoted to business people. It was promoted to big corporate, the corporations and the business people to help the geniuses and the smart people, intelligent people that are running these countries. They got problems. They're problematic drinkers and druggers. So they got to do something about it. So the rich could afford it. Bill W. Check out the High Watch Farm, and Sister Frances. She owned the farm. Sister Frances. She just liked Bill and Bob, and they knew it was a spiritual, religious, Bible, God loving program. So she took a liking to it, and that's where a lot of richer people attended to go to there. So where does that go? So in 1939. Okay, let's check out Marty. Okay, we know Rockefeller took over the medical industry. You can go back many years from that and check out all kinds of different stuff with Rockefeller. In 1938, Rockefeller School of Hygiene and Public Health, John Hopkins, he created the American Cancer Society. Did anyone know that? 1913. What for? Well, drugs. He took over the pharmaceutical industry. Let's not talk about Rockefeller. Rockefeller's too old. It's the Rockefeller family. They couldn't have been involved with all that. Check it out. So Marty comes in the picture. 1939, the High Watch Farm. So she gets involved, and she starts promoting the disease of alcoholism, because the disease of alcoholism was created. They created this disease concept. it's not real. They still don't have no really scientific fact that it's a disease. So Marty hooks up with Jurnik, which everybody knows. Jurnik is that, you know, Jurnik ain't that he ain't that brilliant, but he kind of he wrote some papers about alcoholism. Okay, and then Marty hooked up with Jurnik in '46 because he did a study based on a narrow selective study on a hand-picked group of members of AA. So that's what they do. Now they're going to use Alcoholics Anonymous. I call that the distribution center, where I'll get into it, but all the rehabs. That's why NA. People say, well, you should start talking about NA. I don't have NA. It's all connected. Okay, NA. So you got all these organizations. How the government is tied in with this is unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable how how they got all these different acts and legislations. I mean, it's so simple to follow the dots, because that's when R. Brinkley Smithers came in the picture, because he had the money. So you had Marty, you had Jurnik, and then you had Smithers. Check out Christopher Smithers. Okay. Christopher Smithers Foundation. But try to do some research on Christopher Smithers, founder of IBM. Try to find some information out on him. Smithers, believe it or not, he got sober. He didn't get sober because he was, he had problem drinking, and his family knew it, and he didn't quit until 1954. Smithers, he was 47. Marty was 35 when she got sober. Marty died when she was 76, still promoting, still writing books. So you got man with the, let's see, that's good. Smithers, 47, quit drinking. Smithers donated, see, because the Smithers family, Christopher Smithers, huge, but nothing like Rockefeller. Rockefeller established he went into all the colleges, promoted all the colleges. He created modern medicine as we know it today. But Christopher Smithers, they had tons of money. I mean, 40 million to alcoholism programs, 13.5 million foundations, 83 million personal funds. He was the heir of Christopher D. Smithers. That's when they started to promote alcoholism to society through the NCA, through different foundations that they formed. The NCEA, National Council for Education on Alcoholism, later NCA, NCADD, National Council on Alcohol and Drug Dependency. See, they expanded it. They had to always expand it because Rockefeller was controlling everything on the outside. He didn't care. He just wanted to create the pyramid. Why does he want to create the pyramid? To control the narrative, to control everything, to control the whole medical society. Check out the AMA. Check out who gets in, who writes the DMDs, DMS 3, 4, 5. Who's on the boards? It's all who's on the board of directors. I don't know if I could pause this. There we go. I'm back. I want to show something. Okay, here. We talk about multi-level marketing. Bill W. was not powerful enough, smart enough. He was broke in the beginning to do any of this stuff. Okay, he's just a puppet for the puppeteers. The puppeteers, and you got the puppet masters, and you got the puppets. This was the whole key: multi-level marketing. to recruit one, get a sponsor, you get a sponsor, you get two, you get two, you get two. Here's a compound recruiting, the magic of compound recruiting. I got this book in 1989 when I was in Williams, A.L. Williams. It was a multi-level marketing insurance company scam, called a scam, of course. You know, the power of marketing. You know, this book, I had this book for years. The recruiting mentality. Multi-level marketing, the power and compound recruiting. That's exactly what Alcoholics Anonymous does. It's all about recruiting. And the disease, so Marty had to come out and promote the disease to society. And how did they do that? Through the education system. They educated and promoted. It's a promotional indoctrination system that was devised, and Marty, Jeranek, Smithers, and a bunch of others pumped out to the schools, universities, nurses, doctors, lawyers. Then it got to the athletes and started to promote it through athletes. Then they got, of course, you know, they got into Hollywood. They got into politics. People started to self-promote it. I mean, it was a huge campaign. Huge campaign, which is, you know, it's a big corporation. There's Alcoholics Anonymous is 3 corporations. So what is it today? I mean, it's like dying out a little bit, but we still have to put the word out to check everything out, connect the dots, follow the money. I hear a lot of people talk about there's a guy, recovery elevator, Paul Churchill, I think. He believes in a disease concept, and he's making a lot of money on online program, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. He's helping a lot of people, and it's not the 12-step modality, which I kind of like. Here we go. This is Marty Mann's story. You can only get in here if you're somebody, right? If they want you. All the stories in the back were free. Okay. 1939, woman suffers too. This is Marty Mann. They promote the disease concept, right? Here's one of her pages. I wasn't mad or vicious. I was a sick person. I was suffering from an acute disease that had a name and symptoms like diabetes or cancer or TB. So she's equating this made-up disease like cancer. You got cancer, you know it's in there. They can see it. Alcoholism is a self-diagnosed disease, right? That you can self-diagnose. I hope anybody with medical researches, I hope they can't find this, but I never told anybody about I had a disease, because once they put it in the record, you don't think they're gonna use that eventually against you in some way? Not me. You can do it. Anybody can do it. That's okay. I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying I didn't do it because a disease was respectable, not a moral stigma. First of all, I feel more stigmatized by somebody saying that I have a disease that they created and gave to me, and I had to adopt the signs and symptoms of this so-called disease, and then I put it in my brain that I am powerless and I have no choice, and the only recovery method is through God, Alcoholics Anonymous, and by recruiting others. So Marty was pushing the disease, even in her story, saying it's like diabetes. My grandson has type 1 diabetes. He's not a diabetic. He has type 1 diabetes. I know people that suffer cancer. My wife had cancer. Okay. They seen it. They took it out. It's gone. Okay. then they're telling you that this disease is uncurable. You can't be cured of it. It's uncurable. It's progressive in your body. So they just kept on pumping it out to the schools, society. And let's see where I can go with this. Until finally the insurance comes up with it. The insurance is making good on payments. Once the insurance starts making good on payments, then the whole ball wax. That's when you start Hazelton, Betty Ford centers, all the rehab centers. Okay, so here you have all the rehab centers, governments sending people to AA, treatment, therapy, all these rehab centers. You got the Betty Ford Center, you got Passenger, Malibu, you got all these. California and Florida is like the mecca of recovery. So they create this addiction recovery trap, and then all these organizations send it to the distribution center, knowing that people are going to be coming back out. And when they come back out, they just get filtered in through the system, the medical system that Rockefeller set up from the very beginning, and Marty Mann and the rest of them promoted. And it just goes on. It's continuous. It's a I would say probably a multi-trillion-dollar operation today. I don't know, but I know it's a multi-billion-dollar addiction recovery. And we're just touching on, when I say addiction, I'm talking about substance addiction and process addiction. Okay, because let's just say, let me look here. What type of treatments are there? Where do you go? Huh? Where do you go? OA, NA, CA, SA, GA, Gambles Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Heroin Anonymous, Marijuana Anonymous, Al-Anon, Overeaters Anonymous, CA, Clusters Anonymous, CMA, Crystal Meth Anonymous, CODA, NICA, Nicotine Anonymous. Where do you want to stop? SA, Sexaholics Anonymous, SAA, Sex Addiction Anonymous. You want to go to EA, Emotional Anonymous, FAA, Food Addiction Anonymous. Books after books after books after books. And then there's there's the alternative methods, non-12-step, and that's what I'm all about. I'm all about non-12-step modalities, going beyond the 12-step paradigms, going beyond. This is what I found out. And I just did a podcast today earlier. This is what I found out through all the years. You could go to all these different things. You can go to Smart Recovery, SOS, even all the alternatives. You can go to moderation management. You can go to Women for Sobriety, Rational Recovery, Life Process Program. I don't care where you go. You can even join my Rehab Cafe. But here's the thing. They're just pointers. These books and all these motivational, they're just pointers to the way. We are the way. We are the solution. It's us. I found one thing in common throughout all the different recoveries, modalities and methods and models. There's always one thing in common. It's us. We are the solution. This one says this is the way to go. This one reads a book and says this is the way I got sober. Yes, we all can get clean and sober, or whatever you want to call it. I don't like to call it clean and sober, that's for sure. But we all could get help for our problematic addictions. I don't care if it's substance or processed. But it has to come from us. We have to decide, and we have to say yes to help. I want to go further. I want to check in. I want to check out self-discovery of myself. I want to check out self-analysis. I want to be the one because that's the only way it works. It's got to come from us. I was all over the place today. I understand that. And I wrote down so much stuff, it kind of drove me a little crazy. But I'm going to leave it at that. If you get anything out of that, I appreciate it. And don't forget to check us out, Anonymous Addiction at My Truth About AA, as Bobby C sees it, on Facebook, and come subscribe. Please subscribe to Anonymous Addiction Deprogramming Podcast. Take care, everyone. We'll see you on the rebound.